Hi everyone, Adam here. So today's topic is short, it is sweet, it is quick, and it is good. The question is essentially how many times per week should I train a given lift or a given muscle group? Because of course you have the very traditional bro split kind of approach where you just train a muscle once per week, or a specific muscle group once per week, really hard on one day, and then you don't do it again for a while, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. um, but then on the other hand, you have people that like to do relatively mixed or full body workouts every day, mixing up a lot of the different things. Essentially, it does vary depending on what lift you are using. If you are taking a very, an accessory exercise that you'd have to go relatively light on, like for example a bicep curl, your biceps are small muscles. They tend to recover a lot quicker than stuff like, your chest, your glutes, your hips, your quads. And so, you could theoretically bicep curl every single day without any issue. Even, pretty hard, pushing yourself pretty hard every day, again, because it just tends to recover quickly. And at the same time, it is possible to even do heavier lifts like the squat or the bench press basically every day, again, provided that you do have to modulate the intensity a bit. So, on certain days you may feel really beat up and you may need to pull back a bit. You might not be getting as effective of a workout, but you can still do it. But the question is, what's optimal? What is best? What gets you the most results in terms of strength or in terms of muscular growth? In terms of most lifts, I would say for most people, typically around 2 days per week for each major lift. That includes your bench press, that includes your squat, that includes your deadlift. Now, of course, when you look at the bench press, the squat, and the deadlift, the bench press is definitely the easiest to recover from. It's an upper body lift. There's less muscle involved. You just recover a bit quicker. So in that case, it is, possible to bench 3 or even 4 times a week, or even, 5 or 6 without too much issue. And there are some people who they sort of, they just need more volume. So, they're doing twice a week. They're really not getting sore. They're feeling like it's pretty easy. So they need to do 3 or 4 or 5 days per week on the bench. At the same time, again, same sort of thing with the squat. You could maybe train the squat, a bit more than 2 days per week, maybe 3 days per week, maybe at 4 days per week. You could go more, of course, if you're doing a very strict Bulgarian peaking style program. But in a general sense, probably about 2 or 3 is going to be best for most people. In terms of the deadlift is a bit rougher. The deadlift is a bit harder to recover from, uses a lot of muscle, and it uses your spine a lot. And since your spine is connected to everything else, it can really throw a wrench in the rest of your training program if your spine is super, super sore. So for most people, once or twice per week, most likely. Again, you could do more. No one's stopping you. But on days above and beyond that, you would probably have to reduce the intensity a lot, keep it pretty light so that you're not impacting your recovery too much. Now, if you consider other lifts like the overhead press and the Olympic lifts, well, the overhead press is around it's roughly as difficult as say the bench press. Again, it's easier. It's an upper body lift. There's less muscle involved. You'll probably recover pretty quick, not get too sore, so you can probably hit it more often. At the same time, Olympic lifts, you are using a lot, pretty much all the muscle you can in your body in one lift. And, it depends, certainly. If you're using assistance lifts where you're, targeting portions of the movement instead of doing a full movement, like, a hang clean or a hang snatch or something like that, an overhead squat, again, you're using, just a portion of the movement, so you're not using as much muscle, so that's a bit easier to recover from. At the same time, another quality of the Olympic lifts is that they are all concentric. That means there's only a raising portion of the lift. There's no lowering portion of it. Such as, for example, in the bench press when you're lowering the bar to your chest, the squat when you're lowering the bar to the ground. Since the Olympic lifts are all concentric, no eccentric, no lowering, they're actually much easier to recover from, because the eccentric phase of a lift is actually the hardest part to recover from. It's the part that induces the most muscle damage. and it's the part that your body's naturally a little bit stronger at. So when you take, the Olympic lifts, they do move a good amount of weight, they do use a lot of muscle, but at the same time, they do tend to be a bit easier to recover from. And again, I would rank those probably around the squat, probably 2 or 3 days per week for most people. Again, you could do much more if you're used to it, if, you've been training for a long time, but that's, probably a good place to start. So once again, bench press probably about 2 to 4, 2 to 5 days per week. Squat about 2 to 3, and deadlift 1 to 2. 2 is probably ideal, I would say, even if your second day has to be pretty light. But again, you can do more. It's just a matter of regulating your intensities. It's just a matter of what you're used to. That is kind of my experience with training myself, with coaching other strength athletes. That is what I've seen the most. Again, that doesn't mean that that's the sort of range that everyone falls into. That doesn't mean it's perfect for everyone. That just means that that's sort of, again, what I've tended to see in terms of how people react well to certain things. And yeah, again, less experience with the Olympic lifts, but we can give kind of a rough analog. Again, push press or overhead press about the same as the bench press, so probably about 2 to 4 days per week. And the squat, probably about on par with the Olympic lifts, so again, about 2 to 3 days per week. So, all right, that is it for today. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos. I will talk to you guys next time. Have a good night.